Good morning, folks. My name is Chef Mike. I'm coming to you from Roth Living in Minneapolis. Today's session is an ownership session on things that you cook on. So ranges, range tops, cooktops, both induction and gas. And we have a wide variety of different configurations that people have on this call. So I'm going to try to cover the whole range of things. We are going to record this, and I will be happy to send you a recording link at the end of the session sometime later this afternoon or tomorrow. And I will include a couple of references that we're going to talk about today in that email. In the meantime, you'll also see Kelly on this call. Kelly is one of our showroom consultants here, and she is the producer for our virtual video series. So she will be manning the chat section if you want to familiarize yourself with that chat section. And if you have a question during this time, feel free to ask it. She may answer directly. She may flag me and ask me to answer it, or she might hold it. If you feel like your question is more complicated that can be answered in this very straightforward form, just send it anyway, and I will follow up with you directly. We have a number of people across several different time zones, so it is not a problem. If you have that question, just feed it to us. We are going to cover all those surfaces, and we're going to cook a little dish at the same time, and then we're going to cover some cleaning basics so that you should be able to feel very comfortable about using your appliances. I am also going to talk about how to season and clean that griddle. There's a number of people who have the griddle configuration, either a double griddle or a single griddle, and we will talk about that a little bit. But I want to start with just a quick review, and I promise at the end of the session we'll use a different camera so you can see the finished food products. I just want to look down here and take a quick look at what we're going to cook across these surfaces today. We're going to do a very simple, let that color adjust a little bit. We'll do a very simple scallop pasta Diablo. I've got some sea scallops here that are really nice. I've got just a bed of spinach. I've got some tomatoes and sliced garlic that we're going to cook. A little bit of lemon just for our punch of acid. And then we'll cook some fettuccine pasta. That all this will be a bed of pasta on the spinach. And then we'll put those scallops and other items on top. So the idea is in the next 45, 50 minutes, we'll cook through all those, talk through all those cooking surfaces and cover some basic cleaning. If you're all right to get started, we're gonna go ahead and go. I'm standing over here now in front of a 48-inch dual fuel ranged, and it's also very, very similar to the 48-inch sealed range top. It has two burners on the left. It has two burners on the right with this is a double griddle configuration. If you have a 36, you would only have a 11-inch griddle. And if you have a 48 with a single griddle, you have 6 burners instead of 4. We'll talk about this surface pretty significant in a few minutes, but I want to start with the very basics of a dual stacked gas burner. Now in this configuration, your smallest burner is always towards the wall or towards your left front. Your largest burner is right directly in front of that. So this is about 9,000 BTU. This is about 20,000 BTU on this particular unit. And then 18 and 15 over here. So tend to be higher in the front and then a little lower in the back of that configuration. So I want to zoom in on this burner and just talk about dual stack for a moment. Then I'm going to switch gears and talk about induction for a moment. And then we're going to cook things on both surfaces so that we can see what that configuration looks like, and that way we'll get taking care of everybody. If you have a gas cooktop, I don't have one of those live in the Culinary Center, but the burner discussion is exactly the same. How they perform and how they cook is the same. I will talk specifically about keeping your gas cooktop clean because it has a stainless steel bed that we'll address briefly. So let's take a zoom in on this burner. It would help if I actually got you to the burner. There we go. Sorry, tour of the kitchen's free of charge. All right, so in every Wolf burner, regardless of which range top, or cooktop, the configuration is the same. There's an upper set of holes and then a lower set of holes closer to that bottom of that mushroom cap. And then the igniter is on the back side here. And inside this unit, there are two gas lines, a low pressure and a high pressure. And each of those lines goes to each burner. And what they support is every knob has a off, and then you go into a high range, trying to get that so you can see the light, high range all the way down to low. And then you push a knob in and you get simmer, and then simmer goes all the way down to low as well. And that's true with every single burner. All the burners have a high to low, and then you push a knob in, it extinguishes this upper band and lights the lower band. And that gives you that full cooking control through the entire range that you might need to cook on. So let's light this burner. Oh, and you can see the beautiful high flame, so high that they're out of the picture. There we go. Beautiful high flame. That's wonderful for searing, which only represents about 3 to 5% of how we cook. It's super important to have that high heat. It's nice and even. I don't have any ports blocked, but it's also not the most of the time you're doing something other than high temperature sear. So Wolf considers it super important to give you full control through the whole range of the burner. So I'm slowly turning it down, still on that upper range. And now I'm down at the bottom of that upper range. You can tell the flame is still coming out of the top, right? But it's very, very low. And I'm going to push the knob in, turn it. And what that's going to do is extinguish the upper and light this lower. If I can shield it a little bit, you can see that flame down there. Then we'll continue to go down to the lowest possible setting. And at this point, we are on this 20,000 BTU burner. We're down about 500 BTU. So it's very, it's not uncomfortable to hold your hand here. But what that gives you is the total control through the cooking range. So if you think about how we cook, often it says bring to a simmer or bring to a boil and then reduce heat and simmer for 20 minutes. Well, the bulk of your time is in that lower range. It's important to have enough power to get it to that boil very quickly, but then you want to have control. And this will allow you, without extinguishing, it's still lit. It doesn't go on and off. It'll give you that total even control for low temperature cooking. Low temperature cooking is important. Yes, you can melt chocolate without a double boiler, but you can also hold things, delicate sauces like hollandaise, even something as simple as tomato soup, which often if you're trying to hold at a low temperature, it's too hot and it scorches the bottom and you get that red volcano in the center. But this will give you that control. And it's so low, even though I'm not advocating that you do this, but it's so low that it won't even mark paper. This burner is still on. And I'm going to put a piece of paper over it. It's on low. Let's go zoom back in. And then I'll show you that the paper sitting on the flame, you can still see the flame down there, doesn't even get marked. It's not even marked, okay? So truly committed to that low temperature cook, giving you the right amount of time and the adequate temperature control to cook any of your dishes exactly the way you want to. Now, that simmer feature isn't on one burner, it's on every burner regardless of configuration. You have that low temperature control. These on a range top or a range, the well here is a black porcelain well, and we'll talk about how to clean that. On your gas cooktop, that would be a stainless steel bed underneath, and the cleaning for that just requires that you follow the grain and stay on it. As things discolor on a gas cooktop, if your stainless steel gets a little discolored, there are times that you'll need to work on that, and I have some recommendations for you as well as a cleaning reference from Wolf. Okay, so this is the dual stack burners and the gas burner portion of cooking. I'd like to transition over and talk about induction for a few minutes. So I'm going to switch over to the other side. And on this induction burner, I'm standing in front of a 15-inch induction burner. Many of you had 36s, some of you had 30s, lots of different configurations, and that's fine. They all function the same. And I've got some pasta water going here. I had about 6 quarts of pasta water in here, cold from the tap. It came to a rolling boil in about 8 minutes. So you may vary a little bit, but about 8 minutes this came to boil. I'm going to add some long pasta to it. I'm just going to break it, drop that in there. I am going to talk about how this burner functions a little bit, but let this pasta do its thing in the meantime. So I'll give it a quick stir and make sure it continues to boil. We'll put the lid back on that. And let's just talk about, in general, how this induction burner works. Back in 8th grade, there was a time where you took a nail and wrapped a wire around it and put it across a battery and created an electromagnet. That is exactly the way this induction burner works. There's a whole array of electromagnets just underneath the surface of the glass. And when you engage the power, it's only going to agitate the carbon steel particles in the pan. So if a magnet will stick to your pot, then your cookware is good to use with induction. All of your cast iron, all of your Lodge enamel coated cast iron, Le Creuset enamel coated cast iron, most stainless steel made in the last 10 years has enough carbon steel in it to be friendly for induction. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I've got some recommendations that I keep handy on pans, if that's something that is of value to you. I'm going to set a timer here right on the surface to know when my pasta is done for 10 minutes. Beautiful. This timer is pretty handy. I want to zoom in and talk about the controls as well. This particular configuration only has 2 burners, but yours typically will have more than that, and you have the ability to bridge them or use boost, and I want to talk about both of those things, but let's look at these controls. Wolf has given you the same incremental control through the whole range of cooking. Now, I know it's backwards and upside down, but follow along. I did use this boost feature when I was bringing the pasta water to a boil. I filled it, I put it on high, and I hit boost. And what boost does is it draws power from the adjacent burners, reducing their ability. They only go to about half power while you're using boost, but it gives you the ability to bring that water to a boil very quickly, bring something you're cooking to a simmer very quickly. I do not use boost to preheat a pan. It only takes about 90 seconds, and we're going to get to witness that when I cook some scallops here in a little bit. But I just wanted to give you a sense of boost is about bringing something to a boil quickly. I don't necessarily saute on that because there's plenty of power in that range. Now, the controls are not numbered, but there is, let this focus a little bit. A little better. You have either melt or simmer at the bottom, and then you have dots that go up to a high reading. Those gradations, there's 10 altogether if you can't count melt and high or simmer and high. Through the first 7, you have very small increments of control. So very small changes in the power. And then the last 8, 9, and high, 8, 9, and high are bigger jumps in power. So if you think about how that works, just like the gas burners, you have this very gradated control through the first 7 positions, little bits of changes. If you want to visually see those changes, I recommend you just put a saucepan on with water in it, bring it to a boil. And once it's at a rolling boil, just touch each one of those settings and you'll see the bubbles decrease. The first 3, they decrease a lot, but then those last ones, it's a very controlled. The reason, again, that's important is we need to sear, but then we need to be able to simmer or hold something or cook something at a more manageable temperature. And the induction can do that because of the way they've given you that control. The one thing we don't have on this small unit that you have on your cook surfaces is a bridging. Right between these two controls, there'll be the word bridge. I turned it off by accident. There'll be the word bridge, and that allows the two burners to operate together with a single control. So once you've hit bridge, the two elements that are bridged operate as a single element to hold a larger pan, a large skillet, a roasting pan, perhaps a griddle flat bottom griddle that you might put across there. And then rather than trying to control two controls, they will work as one. And that's a really helpful feature depending on where you are on your cooktop. I just want to peek at this pasta. Oh yeah, coming along good. So between boost and bridging, those are the two functions that are a little bit different in terms of how this operates. I want to zoom back in on one more piece here as well. It's very handy. Whoa. It's very handy to have a timer right here. My timer's counting down. It's between 5 and 6 minutes right now. Because how many times does the recipe say, bring to a boil and then reduce heat and simmer for 15 minutes? Well, with all the other timers you got going in the kitchen, it's nice to have one right here on this surface that's giving you a little countdown in terms of your timing on something that might be on the stovetop. And also, if you can see, and I'm going to try to stand out of the way, there's little diamond inclusions in the glass surface, and those are actually ceramics. And what that does is it both strengthens the burner, giving it a lot of strength, so you can pound on it, you can knock it, you can put your cast iron skillet on there. I wouldn't bang the skillet on there, but you can do things on it and not worry about scratching that surface. It also has a 30-second delay if you decide to pull your pan off and do something chefy, like add some water or you want to go add something to the pot. And for 30 seconds, the unit will remember exactly where you were. If you put the pot back on there, it will resume exactly at that same setting. That's helpful because there are times we do need to pick it up and shake it or stir it or add a little liquid to it. And I don't want to have to start over on my setting. So if you do that, you have a full 30 seconds. Wolf is also instant on. It will be the second that you put a pan on there and you engage the power, it will start heating up. Typically, that pan is ready to cook between 90 seconds and 2 minutes, ready to go. You got to have everything ready because at that point, it will continue to be ready. And if for some reason you turned it on and forgot about it, something came up. The unit will shut itself off. If it doesn't sense anything in the pan for a period of time, the unit will just shut down because it doesn't want to get to an excessive heat condition, which could, cause damage. Cleaning this surface is very straightforward. I will review that with the cleaning instructions on the other side. One of the things about this look and this style is it is super easy to clean up. The cleanup piece is much easier than perhaps on another appliance. All right, so our pasta is going to town here. It's got a few more minutes. I want to move back over and talk about the griddle a little bit, at least till this timer goes off. Then we're going to return to this side and I'm going to sear scallops in both places so that you can see, regardless of what surface you have the ability for those very critical operations that result in great results, like searing scallops or searing other proteins. It's not just about quickly boiling water, but it also has this ultimate control in terms of what you're going to cook in it. I'll also mention that I was doing some chocolates around Valentine's, and I wanted to temper my chocolate. Tempering chocolate means that you have to elevate it to a certain temperature, drop it to a certain temperature, and then it will have a shine and a nice snap to it, like you would find on the outside of a truffle or some bark, right? I needed to reduce the temperature to about 87 degrees. I was able to put water here with a digital thermometer and hold it for at 87 degrees for about 4 hours. I was also able to do that on the gas burner at that lowest simmer setting. So without adjusting the flame, I was able to hold a very steady temperature for a long period of time. And that works. I did have to re-engage it once because after a significantly long period of time, sometimes it wants to make sure and it asks you to re-engage that particular piece. Okay, our pasta is getting close. I'll step back over here in a moment and take it out. Let's return to the griddle and start talking about that just a little bit. The griddle surface on both range tops and dual fuel range, and some of you have the legacy dual fuel range, some of you have the new model dual fuel range. The functionality of the griddle is the same, so I'm not going to go into any differences between those two. It's a very even cold rolled steel that is an alloy, a proprietary alloy. But what you end up with is a very flat surface. It does not have hot spots. The burner underneath is a ceramic infrared burner that's shaped kind of like an hourglass underneath if you looked, giving you total heat in the corners. When I get ready to cook scallops on here, I'll be able to show you I can cook on the front edge and I can cook on the very back edge and get the same results because it does a really good job of evenly heating this plate. The thermostat is located, just checking that timer over there. The thermostat is located very close to the plate. And it runs from the back to the front, probably within a couple of inches of the end on both sides. And what that's going to give you is instantaneous reaction. I use this like an infinite saute pan. Anything you can cook in a saute pan, I can cook on this griddle without worried about crowding the pan, right? Anytime I use a skillet and I'm going to do something that in that skillet, I got to worry that I don't crowd it too much and cool it off. In this griddle, that's never the case. So I'm going to start this skillet because we're going to heat a little olive oil and some garlic and some tomatoes to go with our Diablo. I can hear the pasta telling me it's ready. Let's return over there and take a quick look. So I've got my pasta. Let's see what this says. The timer is just yelling at me. I'll take care of that. Now, there is no really good way to test pasta that involves throwing it against the wall. That is not a real thing. You just taste it. And if the mouthfeel is correct, you're there. We're cooking this just a little bit al dente so that we can finish this sauce in that skillet over there. So this pasta is probably about 30 seconds out. Let's return over here and add something to the skillet, and then we'll pull it. So I'm heating this skillet. I'm going to add a little bit of that olive oil I talked about. I'm not really sauteing. I typically don't saute in olive oil. I typically would use a more neutral oil with a higher smoke point. But what we're doing here is just going to roast a little bit. I've got some sliced garlic as opposed to thinly minced garlic, because what I want to do is just slowly toast those slices to give up some nice flavor, but I don't want them to burn. If you mince them really, really fine, it's going to burn in about 30 seconds. I'm also going to add some grape tomatoes and just let those kind of simmer and burst. I'm not exactly sure where you are in the country, but tomatoes are not here in Minnesota yet. We don't get our fresh tomatoes locally till about August. So until that time, I'm a big advocate for roasting your tomatoes somehow to bring those natural sugars to the top and get that little bit more flavor that comes from that. So I've got that going on in here. My garlic's starting to shimmer a little bit. I'm just going to let those go. And then as they start to pop, I'll give you a little close up here. As they start to pop, you're going to see the tomatoes burst, and that's just great because they're going to give up a little bit of flavor that way, and that'll keep that garlic from getting too hot. The garlic should get toasty brown, but not burned. So I'm going to switch back over here. A lot of back and forth today. I'm going to pull this pasta. And then once it gets those tomatoes burst, we're just going to add our pasta to that same skillet over there and coat it in this very simple sauce of roasted tomatoes and garlic. Our scallops are dry packed scallops. That's what you should. I'm now going to reduce this to the low side, simmer on high, because I'm getting lots of sizzle in that pan. Take another look. We're getting some, sorry folks, take another look. We're getting some brown spotting on some of these tomatoes. They're starting to soften and kind of shrivel a little bit. That means they'll burst perfectly exactly where I wanted them to be for this very, very simple sauce. Okay, dry packed scallops, as I was saying, are the most important because you want your scallops not to be injected with 25% of a saline solution that help keep seafood fresh. I don't want anything in my seafood to help it keep fresh. I just want fresh seafood. And so these are dry pack, which means there's no injected saline solution, so that when we brown them or sear them, we're gonna get a crust. And that's awesome because that brown crust on the outside of the scallop is what you want when you're trying to sear them. Now we're gonna do two things. This griddle is already preheated. I'm gonna put a little fat on it. It is seasoned. We'll talk about that as we're cooking these scallops. It is seasoned kind of like a cast iron skillet, in which case it's already non-stick, and that's awesome. I'm gonna turn on the induction at the same time here, which the pan is not preheated. I have this little teeny tiny carbon steel. It's actually an omelet pan, but it gives me a really good surface to show you. So I'm going to put this on as well. And in about 2 minutes, two minutes, this will be ready to cook on. I got some nice caramel notes on my garlic toasting up. I'm going to add a little salt to this. And at this point, I'm also going to add a little chili flake. It is Diablo, by the way, so it's going to have a little spice to it. Beautiful. Those tomatoes are softening up and bursting. I'm also going to season the scallops now. I don't season them early because as soon as you season the scallops, it starts to bring the moisture to the surface, and I'm not going to get a good sear. What I want is a really nice brown sear on these. So I'm going to season the tops. And I'm going to cook 4 of them over here. 1 of them right there on the back. I will zoom in on the griddle in just a second. 1 in the middle. And then we're going to cook 2 in this little skillet over here. Let's not put the scallop pan on the remote. A little fat there. It is ready to roll. You can hear that same sound here that I have going over there. We'll cook 2 of them here. Now, let's zoom in on this griddle so you can actually see it a little bit closer. I will get there. There we go. Scallops are going along doing their thing. The griddle is set on about 400. Now, when you season this griddle, and I'll take you through this process if you haven't already done it, there are instructions in the use and care guide, but you basically clean off the shipping that comes with a little mineral oil coating, and you want to clean that off with a warm cloth, maybe a little bit of soap. Then you want to heat the griddle up to 350, turn it off. After it cools for about 10 minutes, you want to add 1 teaspoon of oil per side if a double griddle, or 1 teaspoon of oil on your 11-inch griddle, and just work that oil in all over. Then you want to turn it back on 350, bring the heat back up until you see smoke. Repeat that process, let it cool, add a little more oil to it. And Wolf recommends that you do this at least 2 times. I've had much better success doing it a total of 3 times. I get just a little more even. And this is got a nice patina on it, but yours may not be this dark in the beginning. So what you want to do is just, as you cook on it, it will get more and more patina, and then it'll be more and more non-stick. That's the way this will work. I want to take a quick peek here and see how these scallops are doing. I'm getting my sear. Still need a few more minutes. Let's see what these look like. Oh, they're not quite there yet. So you want to make sure that you have them enough time to really get that sear on them. And that is, so you get that crust. Now these are sushi grade scallops, so you can get a crust on one side, a crust on the other. They can be as tender as you want in the middle. Now let's talk about how to clean this griddle while we're waiting for these scallops to finish their deal. I've got my tomatoes and the garlic completely broken down now. I think it's ready to actually add the pasta to this pan. Beautiful. I'm just going to coat the pasta in these roasted tomatoes and sauteed garlic. Very, very simple pasta dish here. But this is how easy it can be with summertime pastas especially. I don't like a big, thick, heavy sauce. I just want some fresh tomatoes, a little garlic flavor, really good olive oil. Put a little more oil on this, just a touch. We can put a little cheese on it. Seafood's not really known for pairing with cheese, so we'll keep it to a very light amount. Let me zoom in so you can see what this looks like. I am having lots of trouble finding the button, folks. I am so sorry. Here we go. So, focus. Give me that focus so you can see that red. The pasta's in there. The tomatoes are bursting. We will get a really good picture with another camera once we get our food ready to plate. Let's take a look at the scallops over here. I'm on this side. Let's take a look at the sear. Nice brown sear on there. I'll get to where you can't see that at all. A little brown coat on there. There we go. Do that on this one too. Then we'll turn the scallops that are on the griddle in the back scallop. Nice brown crust. Again, trying to shield your light. You can't quite see that brown crust, but you'll see it when we turn these over. There we go. Nice dark brown crust on this griddle from the front to the back edge. I know it's really hard to see the color on these, but you will see them as we get them plated with this other camera. It's just a light piece. Just see a little bit of that color. See that as I get my hand over it? See that nice dark crispy color there. So those are coming along. To clean this griddle, what we're going to do is once we're done, we're going to scrape it from front to back. And there is a video on the Roth Living YouTube channel. This is a place you should familiarize yourself with that has a ton of videos on all of our products, how to use them, how to clean them, how to season the griddle is on there, all of those. And we have 5 chefs across our 5 showrooms. We don't all clean the griddle exactly the same way. We're really close. But I will give you what Wolf recommends for cleaning, and that's actually the way I'm going to do it today. I scrape and remove any food using a bench knife. That's what this is. It's just a square. It's got nice sharp points, nothing rounded on the corners. And I'm just going to remove any food to this front tray, which is removable. It's hot right now, so I'm not going to remove it, but this is removable. You scrape all your food particles there and then let the griddle cool to about 225 degrees. At 225, it will still boil water, create steam, and steam clean the griddle, but it will not, it won't damage the seasoning or anything. It pulls all those impurities up and then you see them on the top of the water, and you bring that water to the front. I will do that for you in just a second. We'll plate this food. I'll quickly clean the griddle, and then we'll go back and you can see that process before you see the food. I want to take over and take a quick look at the other scallops. These are getting really close now. These are absolutely ready. Dark crust on those. I know you can't see that. Let me zoom in a little bit more. You see this nice dark crust on that scallop. You can see that browning right there. So these are ready. So the ones in the little pan that wasn't on early are already ready. The ones over here on the griddle are also ready. So you didn't lose any time doing it on induction or doing it on the griddle. You had to preheat the griddle, but that induction is that fast in terms of how it heats, and it goes in a quick manner. So I'm gonna take these scallops and just put them with those ones from the induction as we start to plate this dish. And I want to quickly, while it's still fresh in my mind, I want to scrape the food particles off of this. So let me get you a little bit closer on this griddle. It's here. And I'll just scrape any of those food particles, excess fat, right to the front into this little removable trough. And then once this cools for a minute, it will come back and do a quick steam clean on it, just using water. Now, if you had a lot more food buildup, let's say you teriyaki something or you did something that had a little more food buildup, if you need to scrub it because this is just not going to cut it, Wolf makes a griddle cleaning kit. You can order it. I don't have them here in the showroom, but you can order them. It includes a product by 3M that has an elevated temperature scrubby pad. It's good up to 275 degrees, so you can clean it and really get in and work on some of those spots. And it also comes with a stripping cleanser that allows you to periodically, if you've got so much buildup on there, you can completely strip this whole surface and get it closer to how it was when it came from the factory. And that's just putting that cleaner on there and following the instructions, and then you scrape it off, and then you rinse it one time, and then you have to re-season it. So anytime you do that, you'll have to re-season your griddle so that it stays non-stick. But as you can tell, those scallops didn't stick at all. It was just a minimal amount of fat on there. So let's see if we can put this pasta dish together, and I'll get Kelly to show you a close-up on the food. Then we'll bounce back, and I'll actually clean the griddle. Then we'll talk cleaning in general, and we'll wrap this up with any questions you might have. So I'm going to zoom into this middle here and plate, and then Kelly's going to give us a much better view once she switches camera views here. Oh, that's a nice view. Wants to roll off the hill. Put these other few tomatoes on there. This is a part where I wish I had some smell-o-vision for you. You can smell the roasted garlic, what that feels like. I'm just going to do a little bit of lemon over the top. Just another touch of oil. And then we'll finish with just a little bit of Parmesan cheese. Now, you can tell this is a very flexible, it's not even a recipe, it's just a quick pasta dish that you can make on Wednesday nights. But that is how that dish finishes. Beautiful. Thank you, Kelly. Okay. As this griddle is cleaning, you can clean it with still water or you can use bubbles. I tell you that the bubble water if you have a very stubborn stain, the bubble water is going to give you just a little better surface cleaning because the bubbles stick to the food particles. Now, I didn't really mess this up today. I didn't burn any sugar on there. There's nothing that's going to be too hard. But I still, if I have the chance, now it doesn't have to be Perrier, just any kind of carbonated water without anything in it will help with those stubborn stains. Otherwise, just a cup of water from the faucet is just fine. I am going to use an oven mitt though, because I don't want to steam burn my hand. Because you're going to reach over this griddle to do this cleaning process. I'm going to let it cool for a second longer because it's still a little warm. So in the meantime, let's talk about general cleaning of your surfaces. For the ranges and range tops with the black porcelain, you can clean that well with a little bit of Barkeeper's Friend or just a simple degreaser. The products that Wolf recommends for those cleaning operations, I'm going to send you a cleaning reference sheet and it will talk about these products, but not by name. Just a citrus degreaser works well. Barkeeper's Friend or Bon Ami, which is another very lightly abrasive cleaner, mildly abrasive cleaner, works well in there. And I would use a blue scrubby, not a green scrubby, just a blue one because it won't scar the surface. And then you can make that surface, a little water in there and a little paste and clean it up. If you got a acidic or a particularly sweet spill, make sure you get all of that food particle up as soon as it's cool enough, because that will tend to dull the finish in places and you don't want to have that. The grates can be simply wiped down, and there is a product on the reference sheet if you want to better clean these. They are not dishwasher safe, but they can be wiped and cleaned very easily. For any of the stainless steel here that may have gotten splatter on it, I tend to use a Norwex cloth. You can just wipe up that and then it will keep your stainless steel looking great. If you have to do a stainless steel cleaner, there are specific products also recommended on this reference sheet that I'm going to send you. Typically, Stainless Steel Magic is the one to keep these surfaces clean. When your piece comes to you, they give you a little solution that is used for shining and cleaning, polishing stainless steel. That works great, but I don't use it every day. In daily use, I just try to keep this surface as wiped and clean as I can. For the gas cooktops, what they recommend is you get some brown heat spots sometimes, or you'll get food that has spilled over and cooked on. If it has any height, they recommend that you get that off as soon as you can so it doesn't dull the finish. And then they recommend a product called Pennywise to actually clean that patina that comes on those stainless steel burner surfaces. I will tell you, it is something you have to do regularly. Like after you cook, do a quick wipe, and that will keep it from getting much worse. If you have stuff that spilled over or splattered over, and you go through 2 or 3 more heat and cool cycles, those stains just get a little harder to get up. Not impossible, just a little harder to get up. So for your gas cooktop folks, make sure that you are cleaning with the grain of stainless steel. And almost all of those, it runs from left to right or right to left. It doesn't run front to back. And you want to make sure you clean with that grain with a smooth cloth, whether you're going to use that cleaning and polish or whether you just want to do some cleaning. Again, this cleaning reference that I'm going to send you from Wolf identifies every single surface of a Wolf range oven component, all of them, and then gives you a cleaning product and a method for cleaning that they have found to be the best. Now, let's switch over and talk about the induction, and I think this griddle will be cool enough to clean when I come back. For the induction, you're only talking about cleaning this glass surface. And typically, like I've got some splatter on here. I'll zoom in so you can see it. Got a little bit of splatter on here. And just, again, once it's cool, I do want it to cool a little bit. And then I'm just going to simply wipe it first to see if anything is remaining. That back burner is probably still a little bit warm. It does want you to wait till they cool down, just so you don't provide any thermal shock. If you happen to boil something over on this surface, like the pasta water was too full and it boiled over, note if the surface identifies liquid on the glass, it will shut down temporarily, allowing you to wipe that up, and then you can go right back into cooking. You don't have to completely clean it, just get the surface moisture off the top. And then they give you, with your product, a little saran cleaner, and saran is the proprietary name for this style of glass. Both electric and induction use this, and this little product should be all you need. When this is used up, you can either get more of this or another glass top cleaner, and it goes on and kind of sets up and dries opaque, and then you take a clean cloth and wipe it all off, and you should come back to a full polished sheen. I found keeping my induction clean is very, very easy. Again, I use the Norwex cloth, and then when I need to polish it, I just use this saran cleaner. Back to our griddle. It's probably cooled off enough now. I want to show you this process. I am going to zoom in so you can actually see the surface of the griddle as I'm doing this. And I say that, if I can find the right button. There we go. Only took me the whole hour to get them figured out. So I'm going to pour this water over the surface. You're going to see it instantly boil. And if you can see, you can't see much in your shot, but the little impurities float to the top. And then you just want to drag all of that off into the tray. You don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, I'm going to overflow the tray. It's in a sealed compartment back here. So if you happen to get really zealous with the water, you're not going to hurt anything. You just want to make sure you let it completely cool before you try to empty it and deal with it. But it's sealed underneath, so you shouldn't have any problem. A little spot there I want to get back. Didn't really cook on this side, so I don't need to do any cleaning on this one at the time. If you have a double griddle, you can set these heats up to be different. Have a hot side and a cool side. On the single griddle, it's a single heat control. And then after you've done that, you can turn the griddle off. And then as it's cooling, just like you did when you were seasoning it, I'm going to add a little bit of oil to the surface, about a teaspoon, and I'm just going to work that into the surface. Now, to the folks that are responsible for allergens and how allergens work and all of that, they say steam cleaning removes almost all allergens from your surface. So you can, I like to say it removes all flavor producing elements. So if I did eggs on this tomorrow or right now, they're not going to taste like scallops, because Wolf has, in this cleaning method, what ends up taking away is all of those flavor particles are gone. I need to put a little bit on this side just because we got it hot. And this will keep that surface from getting any surface rust, and it gives you a nice, clean starting spot when you're ready to fire this griddle up. Now I let it cool completely before doing anything else. And then you can remove this tray, dump, and clean this. Now this tray is not dishwasher safe, but it's very straightforward to clean. I just put it in the sink, let it soak a little bit, rinse it out, wash it, put it back. It's dark for a reason. And so if it ends up having a little bit of buildup left on it, that's just fine. Now, I want to open it up for any questions about cleaning any surfaces at this point that we have not touched on. This was really focused only on cooking surfaces, not on ovens. There's another session towards the end of this month on all wall ovens, and with the exception of the steam oven. In that session, we'll cover wall ovens, what the oven is under your range, as well as the speed oven. Question?
Talk about fat did you use for the scallops?
The question is on the fat that I used. I tend to, anytime I'm cooking on a griddle, I use a neutral oil that doesn't carry a lot of flavor and has a high smoke point. For instance, vegetable oil is a great choice. The only thing I wouldn't cook with is extra virgin or first press olive oil. And it's not because it's a bad oil to cook with, but because it has a very low smoke point, and whatever you paid for it is going up in the first wisp of smoke. So vegetable oil, canola, grapeseed oil. If you have something like avocado oil, that's fine. It just tends to be expensive as well. But as long as it has that nice high smoke point, you can use peanut oil. We don't here in the showroom because of the potential for allergies. But if you know your crowd, know that's not an issue, you can absolutely use peanut oil. Today, I used in this container was more of a pure olive oil, not extra virgin first press, cold press. Any other questions on cooking surfaces in general? I don't want to belabor the point. I will send a link to this session, recorded link out to this session to anybody who happened to miss it, or for those of you who want to refer back to it. I do want to refer you to the Roth Living YouTube channel for additional information about different cooking modes, appliances, cleaning, everything, how to clean and season your griddle, all of those things. And I will include Wolf's cleaning reference in this same email, and I'll get that out to you just as soon as I have the recording available to me. If there are not any more questions, you guys have a great day. Thanks so much.
Any trick if the cooktop is not recognizing your finger?
On the induction, if it's not recognizing your finger, play around with shadows. I think that's where that's coming from. Also, if your hands are particularly have anything on them, any oil or grease, I have a lot of trouble with it. But I have found if the cooktop isn't recognizing my finger, if I shift a little bit and change the light on it, it typically does. You have the ability to adjust both the sound and the volume of that too, and that's in your owner's manual there. But typically dry hands work the best, and shift around a little bit to change the light. Great, folks. If you have another question that you didn't get answered here, don't hesitate to send me an email. I'll be happy to get back to you as quick as I can. Have a great day.